Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. Schmeelk Medow with you. The phone number to give us a call and chat is 201-939-4513. Hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter, or just send in questions to either of our Twitter handles, and we can talk to you that way as well. Mr. Medow, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Everything's good. Practice today was
Yep.
one of those kind of overcast, dreary days. Temperatures in the 70s. One of Lance's favorites. He's
Absolutely.
all about
Sign me up.
He's all about that.
Very comfortable.
The only thing that was missing for you was the rain.
Yeah, I would have liked it, but it didn't come.
Not yet.
It was
It's
very
coming.
threatening,
Oh,
yes,
it's coming.
during the course of practice, but it held up. Mother Nature cooperated.
Yeah, we have not even had the threat of really going inside yet so far. I don't think we've had one drop of rain in any practice, actually. So the Giants
No,
are
I
very
can't
lucky
recall.
that way.
Yeah, very
And
fortunate.
And looking at Detroit next week, I think right now, and obviously we're a ways away here, but temperature's supposed to be in the mid-80s in Detroit with, I think, one day at like a 30 or 40% chance of rain right now. So not impossible, but so far they've been lucky in terms of the weather for sure. Second padded practice, Lance, of the summer for the Giants. They had a padded practice on, I guess that was Tuesday, right? Then Wednesday was a day off. They had a shells practice yesterday, then back in pads today. You didn't have any 9-on-7 like you had on Tuesday, which is basically the lines working on run game stuff and some play action. But you did have a little bit of O-line, D-line one-on-ones today as these guys continue to try to feel each other out. And you kind of get a feel for how these guys handle some of the better players on the other side of the ball in those one-on-one situations.
And John Michael Schmidt spoke to the media after practice, and he was commenting on the exact point that you just laid out, specifically going up against Dexter Lawrence, right, on a daily basis, and how that's going to help him in the long run and how important it is for him to get on the same page with his fellow offensive linemen, not just the guy he's working with. He talked about the entire room working on that process, but you could tell Dexter Lawrence, it is quite the expert coursework that he is seeing on a daily basis.
No, I mean, no one can block him.
Yeah.
No one can block him.
Well, but you know what? Better to be thrown into the deep end of the pool, right?
Yeah, Paul and I talked about this yesterday. Schmitz had Lawrence twice on Tuesday. I thought he did okay against him. He got slowly backed into the quarterback, which is going to happen. Today, I thought he did a little bit of a better job. Lawrence did getting around Schmitz faster. But then, Ben Bredesen has not lost a one-on-one pass snap, in my opinion, except for the two he had against Dexter Lawrence. And Dexter Lawrence won those. I mean, you just can't block him. He's too big, he's too long, he's too powerful, he's too quick, he's too athletic. So he's basically just doing whatever he wants,
pretty much,
for lack of a better term over there. But John Michael Schmitz then had a good rep against Jordan Riley, I thought, today, which was good to see. And look, it's just fun seeing these guys go one-on-one. We'll see more next week against Detroit, especially the defensive lineman against a very strong Detroit offensive line, which is one of the best units in the league. So that should be fun as we learn more about these guys as training camp continues.
Yeah, I think the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in football. I'd go so far.
Oh, yeah.
Big reason why they had such an effective run game and, for the most part, get Jared Goff upright last season. So, yeah, I agree. This is going to be a really good test for the Giants' defensive front. And, the more and more we talk about Dexter Lawrence and the push he gets and how impossible it is to contain him, that's why it's so critical this year for Thibodeau and Ojulari to stay healthy. Because if those two guys could be on the field consistently and Dex wins his battle, there's going to be opportunities based on the pocket collapsing for those two guys, John, to chip away and impact the quarterback. I'm not saying it's got to be a sack, but maybe get in the vicinity of the QB to impact the pass. That's why what Dex does opens things up. He opens the floodgates for just about everybody else.
Well, what's the easiest way to get away from an outside rusher? It's to step up in the pocket.
Exactly.
You can't step up in the pocket if Dexter Lawrence is driving the center back into the quarterback's lap, which is pretty much what he did all year last year, what he's been doing in camp this year as well, at least in the one-on-one drill. So, yeah, 100%. Azeez Ojulari did get a rest day today. He spoke to the media. Nothing really jumped out to me from him. How about you?
Relatively straightforward. He's just obviously setting goals to stay healthy. He would not put a number in terms of his total sacks.
Lots of
he doesn't
stretching
get caught up in the numbers. Yoga, too, is now part of his preparation and his game plan. Yes, because he was asked, John, about the fact that he's dealt with some injuries. Did you change anything up this offseason? And he mentioned stretching and yoga, the combination of both he's hoping perhaps sets him on a smoother path.
Yeah, so he spoke. John Michael Schmidt spoke, as you mentioned. Not really a ton from him either. Just talked about, just kind of getting better. I walked off with him back into the facility. I'm like, so dude, like, that's got to, like, you see Dexter Lawrence across me, like, that's got to, and he played it cool with me. He wasn't like, oh yeah, it's impossible. But he was like, yeah, it's a real challenge every day. He still was kind of that rookie. I don't want to say anything wrong.
Of course,
say anything wrong thing going.
Don't misinterpret my words.
100%. But he made it clear that it's very difficult trying to block Dexter Lawrence. Then you have Micah McFadden, and I don't think we've talked a ton about this so far, Lance, so I guess this is as good a time as any since Micah McFadden spoke today. He's basically been splitting the first team reps with Darian Beavers, and we've seen in some of the other positions where that was happening, it's starting to settle out a little bit. Like, it seems like Pinnock is starting to get the majority of the safety snaps. That's to McKinney. It seems like John Michael Schmitz is starting to get the majority of the starting center snaps, right? But that McFadden-Beavers thing, it still kind of seems 50-50 to me. And I think we're still seeing some rotation at slot corner too. But, I think he's trying to show this coaching staff what he can do and improve on some of those areas that were a weakness last year. And he talked about everything he did in the offseason was working on his coverage. And that's something he's trying to get better at. He was good going downhill last year. We know about him as a pass rusher. I thought he filled gaps in the run game well. But can he improve as a coverage player? And so far, I think we've seen some improvement. That's what he's been focused on. But no one seems to have really kind of taken a stranglehold of that position quite yet.
Remember, Wink Martindale, I bring this up all the time, John, when he spoke earlier in the offseason, he was asked about who stood out to him at the linebacker position, and unsolicited, he gave Micah McFadden's name. So, that tells you all you need to know about the work he's put in over the last few months. And the pass rush was apparent going back to his days at Indiana, and you knew he could help in terms of stopping the run. You now need to prove to the Giants coaching staff they could keep you on the field on third down, and you're not a liability. Beavers has experience in that department because he was a very versatile player in the multiple programs that he played at the collegiate level, whether it be playing on the line, away from the line, and roaming sideline to sideline. I don't think McFadden had as much of an opportunity to showcase his versatility in that department in college, but now the Giants are offering him that golden opportunity. And we've also talked about this at times. We mentioned there's competition, but I'm very interested to see how often Wink is going to keep multiple linebackers on the field. Or is he going to get to the point, based on the matchups that they see also during the course of the regular season, where it's more beneficial to keep an additional safety on the field? Maybe give a 3-safety look as opposed to an extra linebacker. Part of that may be, how confident are you that the safeties could go out and tackle, specifically out in the open field? And are you confident that if you brought a safety up to the line of scrimmage, they could cover? Remember, there's a few guys on the roster, John, that have the ability to play corner safety. They're interchangeable, whether it be a Nick McLeod, whether it be a Bobby McCain. So my point is, depending on how the roster plays out, I would not be stunned if Wink chooses to go in that direction, especially if you're going to see a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and tight ends, as opposed to the opposite with keeping additional linebackers on the field.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Some news just got released. Evan Neal left practice early today. We all saw it. The Giants announced that he is in protocol with a concussion. So he left practice with a concussion. He's in the protocol. That's what's out there right now. So you hope, and here's the funny thing. They're all wearing the protective foam,
the white foam
double helmet things. I forget what they're called, but you guys have seen all the videos that we
cone
put up.
heads, call them.
Yeah, whatever they are. It's basically wearing like a gigantic Nerf thing over your helmet to try to soften all the blows. And that's supposed to try to protect from things
like that. It's like a hairnet,
that.
essentially.
Yeah, except it's thick and it's
well, of course, yes. But in terms of the look and
correct.
the shape is the best I could describe it.
You look like the Great Gazoo from, what is that, the Flintstones? Or was it, you remember, didn't he have the little alien guy that showed up in the Flintstones? Or was that the Jetsons?
Well, I wasn't necessarily a big viewer of either one of those programs, so I can't weigh in to say whether you're right or wrong. I'll leave it to the jury out there, unless Dom wants to weigh in. I don't know. He's too young. I don't even think he knows about the glory days of the Flintstones and Yabba Yabba Doo. So we'll hold off on asking him to weigh in on his expertise.
Great Gazoo, tiny green floating scientist who was exiled to Earth from his home planet for inventing a doomsday device. Let's see what shows I'm looking up here.
I think it looks like the Jetsons, no?
It was discovered by Fred and Barney when his flying saucer crashed in the Flintstones. So yes, that was correct. It was the Flintstones.
So there you go.
And is that not correct? Does that not look like the helmet?
I think that's
looks like the Great Gazoo.
Definitely something that resembles what they have on their helmets.
I wish I could turn this around and show it to the people, but I don't think that's probably going to
I don't think that's going to be a successful Masterful execution.
Look up the Great Gazoo. You'll know. Just Google it, and you'll see it. I wonder if he, maybe he did not appear on the Jetsons. I thought he was in the Flintstones.
Oh, you're talking about an interchangeable character?
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
Look at this. There's some deep stuff here.
I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My knowledge of the Flintstones is the vitamins that I took.
I figured, yeah.
About it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, unless they made Flintstone underwear.
Didn't they have a Flintstones
but I don't know.
movie, though, in the late 90s?
Yeah, they did.
They did, right?
Yeah,
I thought
they
maybe
had.
I know nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Wasn't, what's his name? Who was in the sitcom Roseanne? Roseanne's husband. John Goodman?
John Goodman?
John Goodman, right? I believe he played Fred.
I believe he did.
Yeah.
That's correct.
The more you know, people. There you go. Yeah.
And then, I mean, that was basically based off the Honeymooners. I mean, and then everything
Pretty
was
much.
kind of based off of that.
Yes.
So, anyway, it's all current.
One other injury, by the way,
Yes.
while you brought up Evan Neal, the other thing that was noticeable yesterday's practice, you had Ryder Anderson got shaken up, and then Brian Dable spoke to the media earlier today and just said that he's banged up and they were going to give him some rest.
Yeah,
but
they
it
seem
doesn't
they're still
look
figuring
to
out what's
be
going on there.
anything serious, at least as it stands right now.
Yeah,
that's to be determined.
We mentioned Azeez Ojulari got a rest day today. Sterling Shepard got a rest day today. Paris Campbell had one yesterday. He was back on the field. I don't think Jack Anderson was out there today. Shane Lemieux got most of the number 2 snaps at center in most of the drills. Unless I missed Anderson, I don't think I saw him out there. Because I think Dable might have mentioned that he was not going to
I believe Dable did mention that,
this morning.
And
so
this is what they're going to do throughout camp with
100%.
the veterans. They're going to be in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, you want to make sure these guys all don't get hurt. And, Leonard Williams had the rest day yesterday, too. He was. I don't think I saw Leonard out there today.
I did not see Leonard out there, yeah. I did not see Leonard out there, yeah.
And see what's going on there.
And remember, a guy like Paris Campbell with his injury baggage, more of a reason why you've got to be careful.
Talk about Waller, too. Waller had a rest day earlier in camp. These guys that have an injury history, maybe are older veterans. Adoree Jackson got a lot of snaps off a couple practices in a row when they were putting Trey Hawkins in with the one. So you're trying to manage some of your vets to make sure they stay healthy. Very quickly on Neal, before he did leave practice with that concussion, I found the one-on-ones with him interesting. The first snap he had against O'Shane Zimenez. Zimenez kind of worked him around the edge just a little bit, but it was almost a draw. Then he had 2 straight against Thibodeau. And the first one, Thibodeau tries to beat him inside, and Neal just gives him this, not a physical punch, but like a punch with both arms, right in the pads, and you heard it. It was one of those loud punches, and you saw Thibodeau's upper body kind of jolt back, and he kind of stymied him on the rush. You can just kind of see if he gets everything synced up with his length and strength, what he can do. Then on the next, it's funny, after that, they're lining up for the last set of one-on-ones, and for the folks that don't know, they basically go left to right. So the left tackle goes first, and the left guard, center, and so on and so forth, and they were getting close to the end of the period. And you see Neal and Thibodeau, someone else was going to line up against Neal, and Neal was like, no. And he's pointing at Kayvon, I want to go against him again.
Yeah.
And Thibodeau's like, yeah, me too. So they line up, and then the whistle kind of blows for the end of the period, but they were just up to the right guard at that point. And Brian Dable was there, and the other coach is like, no, let's do 2 more. So it's like they wanted to see that second matchup between the two, and Thibodeau kind of worked around the edge a little bit on the last one. But I just thought it was good to see those 2 guys, top 10 picks, same year, want to go up against each other and try to get better. And one guy won 1 rep, and the other guy won the other rep, and I thought it was just fun to see.
Yeah, it's very similar to what we were talking about earlier with John Michael Schmitz going up against Dexter Lawrence. I mean, you want to go up against the best on your team on the opposite side of the ball. And based on that breakdown that you were just describing, and you look at most offensive linemen, it's not a question about strength and power, especially for a guy like Evan Neal. It's more of a question of the footwork, and if the footwork is in the right or the wrong place, how that is going to put you in a tough spot for the remainder of the play.
Balance, punch, all that has to be synced up and in sync.
But the reason I bring that up, John, is if you're talking about a player that dealt with a knee injury for the bulk of last season, well, where is your knee? Your knee is going to impact then your footwork, because if you're dealing with pain and you're not fully healthy, you're already going in handicapped.
Yeah.
Where you're giving the edge to the pass rusher, because if he gets you caught off guard immediately at the snap, you will not have the ability to recover because of your footwork.
And that's what Howard kept telling us last year, right? That he just did not seem like he was setting right, and his footwork and his set and his stance was something that he worked a lot on this offseason. So good to see. Hopefully Evan Neal is able to, hopefully it's minor. And I mean, maybe I'm trying to go too fast. Get 3 days until the first padded practice in Detroit. You think there's a shot at it?
I don't think you can rush anything when it comes to concussion
I wouldn't
protocol.
rush anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is there a chance that he's fully recovered and good to go by then?
I think right now we're maybe right up against it, because to your point, remember, it's no different than what happens in the regular season.
Yep.
The baseline test they have to compare him to. He has to go through X amount of days. He has to get
and that's
checked
like
out.
going from a Sunday to a Thursday, right?
I mean, you add it up, John.
No, you're gonna run out
Okay,
of
well,
days.
let's put it this way. He's not practicing tomorrow. Okay, Sunday's off.
Maybe he'll
Monday, you don't have to worry about. Then they go to Detroit.
Maybe he'll have a chance out for Wednesday in Detroit instead of Tuesday.
That's why I said I think you're right up against it. Wednesday, maybe. Tuesday could be pushing it.
It would have to go perfectly. Absolutely
Yeah,
perfectly.
he can't have any setbacks.
No.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, has anybody ever been diagnosed with a concussion on a Sunday and then play Thursday night?
You'd be hard-pressed to find an
I don't
example of that.
remember that happening.
Plus, from an optic standpoint, I don't think that's
and
very
obviously,
good.
and
No,
look,
I'm not saying that.
this is me being selfish, wanting to see him go
sure.
one-on-one against
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson. That's the first thing I thought. I'm like,
Absolutely.
I want to see him against
Yeah.
Hutchinson, and I'm not going to see that.
Well, I think you got to prepare for that not
I
happening.
know, but you want to be
given the
cautious.
calendar.
It's
Sure.
You're doing the right thing.
Yeah. If ever you come up to a situation where you're talking about concussion, no matter whether it's severe or not, I think the team is going to side on the slow process to get him back on the field. So that's why I said Wednesday, maybe, but you're right up against it as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. 201-939-4513. Go check out the Giants Huddle podcast. It features interviews. We have player interviews that just ended. Now we're doing some media guys. We're going around the league a little bit. Warren Sharps from Monday. Wednesday, we had Ian Rappaport from NFL Network on the show. Posting up later today will be John Dostremski, good old JJ After Dark from FAN. He's hosting the New York podcast on The Ringer. We got a bunch of other stuff coming next week as well. A lot of good stuff. Check out the Giants Huddle podcast on giants.com/podcast, the Giants mobile app, or just search for it on your favorite podcast platform. And if you happen to be subscribed to that podcast or any of our podcasts, including this one, Big Blue Kickoff Live. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave that 5-star positive review. It would really help us out. All right, let's get to the phones at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Oh, and I should say one more thing about the O-line. I know Hugo wants to talk about it, so I'll preempt him for a second. I went on this whole screed when I was on Paul 2 days ago that Mark Lewinsky is the right guard. He's taking all the snaps at right guard. He's taking all the first-team reps. So what happens the first practice after I say that? He gets second-team reps at right guard, and Ben Bredesen gets first-team snaps at right guard. Now, apparently, that did happen a couple times earlier in the week. I guess I just hadn't noticed it because it was just a snap. I'm not identifying who's at every position on
they
every
going
snap.
in and out of the
other people
field
did, though,
the sequence
and I will
constantly.
and I will tip my cap to them. I did not notice that, but apparently, not apparently, but I saw it. Ben Bredesen got first-team snaps at right guard in yesterday's practice. So, but Glowinski seemed to be back at right guard for most of the first-team reps.
Yeah, I also would not read so much into that because
Brian Dable made the point this morning, right?
Yeah, and he's made that point also earlier prior to
trying
today.
to get different matchups and stuff
Correct.
like that.
Well, but here's the other thing, John. When we talk about how many offensive linemen you're going to keep, when you get to offensive linemen 6 through 9, okay, let's assume you keep 4. I'm just throwing that out there. That backup guard center, he better be able, without any hesitation, to be able to play left guard, right guard, center. Because if he can't play multiple guard spots and in a pinch you can't throw him out to center, it really defeats the purpose of having a player like that on the roster.
Yeah.
You're not in the business where you have the luxury to just keep a guy on the back end of the offensive line that plays one possession. I mean, unless he is just the most remarkable backup left tackle in America that you just can't afford to put him on the waiver wire. So if you know that Bredesen can play right guard, he could play left guard, he could play center, that means that you have 3 spots covered, John, at any point in a game. If he doesn't start, assuming, and you have any of your starters go down, without any hesitation, you can slide in Ben Bredesen. And that's why I think it pays to put him in those different spots and those different scenarios.
Good point. But yeah, maybe not as lock, stock, and shut down that I thought it was that Glowinski's the right guard. Would it, is it impossible that Ben Bredesen's there to start and Azuti's a left guard? No, it'd still surprise me. But given what we saw the other day, I wanted to do a little mea culpa and let you know what I saw. And I will say this, Bredesen's played pretty well this summer, to be honest with you. I think he's been pretty impressive. I think he's done a nice job, whether it's been left guard or center or those snaps at right guard. I think he's done a nice job. So if I had to guess right now who's the starting, I think Schmitz is going to be your starting center week 1. That's my feel. And I think, if I had to guess right now, I think Bredesen's your starting left guard.
I'm completely with you.
That would be my guess.
Well, I think we had this conversation briefly before the start of camp, and I said going in, I think left guard is Bredesen's to lose. Doesn't mean Azudu can't catch up, but I think Bredesen was in the driver's seat.
And by the way, I think Azudu's been pretty good too. I just think Bredesen's been a little bit better.
And once again, Azudu, Bredesen, you're talking about players that can play multiple positions. So there's value to have both of them on the roster, regardless if one of the two actually ends up being part of the starting five.
All right, now let's get to your calls at 201-939-4513. Hugo is in New Jersey. He will lead us off. Hi, Hugo.
Good afternoon, guys.
What's up?
I do want to talk about, the interior of the offensive line, but before I get into that, during the offseason, I called once, and one of the other competitions was the safety opposite of Xavier McDaniel, and I think I made the
McKinney, you're talking about, yeah. Xavier McDaniel played for the Knicks and the Celtics, yeah. That's the second NBA reference that we've had. See, you're going down the road of Charlie, Hugo. You got to be very careful. You got to be very careful with these name drops, okay? Because, the two of us know our basketball.
Now, remember,
so
Hugo,
it's not going to go over our head.
Remember, Lance isn't going to like the Xavier McDaniel reference, because he roughed up Scottie Pippen back in the day, and Lance still has some bad memories about that.
Jordan went after him in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, they almost got a fight. Oh, yeah, that was good.
Trust me, he was taken care of.
Okay.
He's got nothing to show for. I'm not worried.
My bad, Xavier McKinney. And the comment I made was based on observations last year, and I said that I thought Jason Pinnock might have a slight advantage over the others, and one of the reasons for that is because I thought he was the best blitzer last year. And I asked Paul if he was seeing the same thing that I was seeing, and he said he didn't really notice anything. But apparently, Jason Pinnock just confirmed that Wink Martindale thought of himself as his best blitzing safety. So I just want to take some credit for making the my eyes were sharper than Paul's, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Take that, Tino.
Okay, now to the offensive line.
The pat on the back session. Yes.
Don't hurt yourself, Hugo.
Listen. I know it's fluid, right, on the offensive line, but let me just. I'm going to make an assumption for a moment that Ben Bredesen right now is a better pass blocker than Josh Azudu, but that Josh Azudu is more athletic and is a better run blocker. So, my question to you guys:
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if the second part of that's necessarily true, but I'll roll with your premise for now.
Well, I mean, so here's the way I'm.
Well, I think Azudu is more athletic, but I don't think that necessarily means he's a better run blocker right now. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, here's how I think about the left side. What gets me excited about Azudu is because I think there might be some synergy by lining him up to Andrew Thomas and really having, I think, one of the most athletic left sides in the NFL. Even if we put aside my comment about the running game, I think those two guys could make a lot of plays in space and design plays. They're the type of guys with the quick feet who can get out, see their targets, and get on their targets really, really fast. So my question to you guys is, if I'm worried about the Cowboys and what they do, is having the better pass blocker in the lineup better, or assuming Azudu can do a good job in the run game and in plays out in space, is that enough to neutralize the Cowboy pass rush and therefore hide some of the weakness in his pass blocking?
Good question, Hugo. Good question. I would put it this way. I think in the modern NFL, pass blocking is always more important than run blocking. It doesn't mean that run blocking is not important, but pass blocking is essential if you want to win football games. And the second thing I think that's really important is which one of these guys are mentally sharper. And that's something we can't answer, right? We can see how they block guys. We don't know who's missing assignments. We don't know who's executing the right way. That sort of stuff is something we don't know. We're not in the meetings. But remember, the Cowboys stunt and twist more than any other team in the league. And it's not close. Over 50% of the Cowboys pass rush snaps, there's twisting or stunting. That doesn't necessarily, that requires physical ability and athleticism and stuff like that, sure. But that requires you to be mentally sharp, to see that stuff, to anticipate it, to pick it up, to communicate. And I wonder if just Bredesen having more experience and being the veteran, if he's further ahead than Azudu in that. So I think for Dallas, I will take Bredesen to start the year because I think he'll make fewer mistakes on those twists and stunts than maybe a Zudu would. And again, nothing against Azudu. I think he's done well in camp, but Bredesen's just done it for longer and been around for a longer period of time. So that's how I would probably look at it.
I also think you need to take into consideration. Remember, if John Michael Schmidt starts, you have a rookie at center.
That's a good point.
I think it helps to have a veteran like Bredesen, even though he hasn't been in the league for 10 years, but he's got a lot more experience than Azudu.
4th year for him, right, Bredesen?
Believe so. Yeah, I think 2020 was his first year. So can you imagine you going up against Dallas? You have John Michael Schmitz and you have Azudu next to each other.
And by the way, Evan Neal, right tackle.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of growing pains that's going on in real time against one of the best defensive fronts in football. So forget the run blocking and the pass blocking. I'm thinking more through you want to have somebody right next to John Michael Schmitz, specifically 2 guys, right? Because if Glowinski starts at right guard, you feel good with his experience. And then Bredesen, I think you feel more secure on the left side. So I think that's the biggest benefit as opposed to what maybe their specialization is.
Yeah, well, I also made that comment. I think earlier in the postseason that
Would you like to pat yourself on the back for that one too?
I think that's exactly what he's doing.
I mean, he's taking note of when he said it and when he was thinking of it in comparison to us.
I'm going to start taking notes.
Yeah,
I'm going to start taking notes so you can't plagiarize that. Hey, no. No, I mean, Azudu is essentially a rookie, and John Michael Schmitz is a rookie. So that's a bridge too far for me.
Well, I mean, listen, these guys, they're going to have to gain experience eventually. All I'm saying is I don't know if you have to rush it in week 1 against a divisional foe. That's all.
Exactly.
Thank you, Hugo.
You got
Appreciate the call. Ice that shoulder. I don't want you to strain anything.
Yeah, boy, throughout the process of that phone call, can you imagine how many times he was holding the phone in one hand, unless he had himself on speaker, and then patting himself on the back on the other simultaneously, man. That's what you call multifaceted.
The 2023 NFL schedule is
That's a good way to
out,
transition.
And single game tickets are on sale now. Don't miss the Giants at MetLife Stadium this season. Visit Giants.com/tickets to secure your seat today. Well, Lance, the reason I sighed is I'm going to let you pick the next caller. Take a look. Make your choice,
I have it up
sir.
on my screen.
No, make your choice.
Wow, it's like a double-edged sword. Should we get the dice out? Should we have Dom choose?
Yeah, Dom, you could choose. Who do you want?
Yeah, Dom, why don't you surprise us? Just tell us the line so we know who to mentally stress and prepare ourselves.
Line 2? All right. Let's go to Charlie in Portland, Maine. He's up next. Hi, Charlie. You won the phone face-off.
Hey. Hi, guys. How y'all doing?
What's going on?
We brought him up because of the basketball reference, and I guarantee you he called up. Did he call up after he was on before, Dom?
No.
He called up after I mentioned the
Nice
Xavier
one,
McDaniel.
Lance.
I'm telling
Good job.
you. No, I just knew it. Every time he has his ear to the program, if there's a Charlie reference, he has to now make his presence felt so the rest of the nation can know that he's alive and well and still breathing.
It's your fault.
Well, listen.
This one's on you.
It's just he went into Charlie territory, and that wasn't a positive, so that's why that point had to be made. Do not pat yourself on the back when I say that, Charlie.
No, I can't reach.
What do you got?
Yes.
No. Hey, what? Tell me, how did Neil get a concussion? I mean, how is that possible?
It's a padded practice.
It's a padded practice. I know they're wearing the special phone helmets. I did not see the play where it happened. I just saw him walking off the field. I can't answer that question, Charlie. I do not know.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
it's early, Charlie. It's early in camp. He'll be back before you know it. It'll be fine.
And he could have well, listen, it's possible there may have been a symptom that popped up. Maybe it's not a concussion, but they have to be in the process of taking the right steps, and therefore he's going to go through the protocols, and we'll see what happens.
Remember, there was the Anthony Rizzo, right? He tested negative for the concussion, and then all of a sudden he felt hazy 2 days later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how concussions work.
Yeah,
Sometimes 2-3 days later, you're feeling the effects. Right. You never know.
Yeah, I've been feeling the effects of a concussion for a while.
Yeah, I know.
You said it, we didn't, but I'm glad you confirmed it. Yeah, our greatest fears have been confirmed.
Look. This is my take. I think we should keep 7 wide receivers. We don't need 9 offensive linemen. They never dress them anyway. They always dress maybe 7 of them. Why have the extra 2 guys on your 53 when you don't use them? Just have 8 offensive linemen and use that position to get another wide receiver.
Well, I tell you why, Charlie. The reason they do it that way, and I'm being honest with you, is that offensive linemen are so hard to find and so valuable. They're afraid that if they put that 9th offensive lineman, if he's good enough in the practice squad, another team's going to take him.
In fairness,
Yeah,
also, I can make the same argument. If you have 7 wide receivers on your active roster, you think you're dressing all 7?
In fact, 2 are probably
going to be
inactive.
inactive.
That's
So you could make the same argument, Charlie. What are you dressing? What are you having those guys wear uniforms during the week?
But I don't think you would have 2 inactive. I think you would have one that would be a special teams guy.
Like who?
Give
me an example.
Well, Pimpleton. I would use him as a punt returner.
Charlie, by the way, I would go with a different nickname. Probably the Pimp.
Right.
The Pimp is probably not something Khalil would appreciate. So why don't we go away from that, okay?
All right. Well, see, that's why I wanted Hooker. That's why I wanted Hooker.
You see what you did? You were blaming me earlier. We've now gone down a path that we cannot return.
That was funny.
Oh, it was tremendous. I'm chuckling inside. Forgive me. Yes.
But
Charlie.
that's
we
that's
need the
what
drum
I would
roll.
do. Right? Like that's what I would do. I would just say, I mean, we need a punt
Wait, so
returner that
let me
somebody's
ask you this
actually
though.
Scared of.
Wait, Charlie. So you think right now, if the Giants had to pick 7 wide receivers to make the 53-man roster, that Pimpleton is one of those 7 in your mind?
Yeah, I would. I would have him. Yes, I would. I'd pick him.
Interesting.
I'm not
Especially
even
if
gonna ask
Wandell's
about the
on
other
the
6,
on the
but-
pup. If Wandell's on the pup, definitely.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it. Let's say Wando's on pup, Charlie. Who are your 7 that you have on the roster? Well, I'm curious.
Hyatt, of course. Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton? Did he?
He did that on purpose.
I know,
He
you
did that
can
one on
tell.
purpose.
Yeah.
Charlie's on a roll today. He's doing pretty
this
good.
is just material is overwhelming. Yeah.
Okay, what else
Cracking
you got,
up.
Charlie? He's making me laugh.
Oh, I'm glad at least one of us.
No, you're laughing too.
No, I'm laughing out of just pure frustration and enjoyment. It's a combination of both, yes.
All right, so you got
Come on, man.
you have Hyatt, you have Campbell. Who else do you got, Charlie?
Yeah, Hodgkins.
Hodgins.
Right.
Hodgkins.
Close enough. Hodgins. Can we get one
Okay,
name right during this call?
Let's see. Who
Can I
else
help
do we
you?
have?
Well, you named 3.
Slayton.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Darius
Yep,
Slayton.
I-
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like Slayton, but okay, I'll have to keep him on. Slayton.
Sorry to force
and-
you down that path, Charlie. All right,
Yeah,
so
I don't-
and you have Pimpleton, so that's 5, right?
Yeah.
So who
Yeah,
who
and
are the other 2 guys you have to have on?
I would like to have Colin Johnson on,
Okay.
and I'd probably have to go with
How about Beasley?
Shep.
Oh, Shep.
No,
You know, Cole
I don't
Beasley
like
too.
Cole Measley. I don't like Cole Measley.
Okay.
I would go with Shep. I'll go with Shep.
Okay. I figured you
That's
like
what I
Cole
have.
Beasley. He's like a little tiny guy like you. You guys are kind of basically the same size.
No, I don't like him. I don't like him at all. He's 33 years old. He's not the future of the New York Giants. Why waste the spot?
What about
Give it to a younger guy?
What about Bryce Ford Whedon? You didn't bring him up.
I haven't seen enough from him yet.
Oh.
If he does better than
Charlie, pumping the brakes on you.
He's
Charlie's
been doing the research.
brakes
Yeah.
on
He's like,
you.
oh, I got to see, certain breakdowns
He
of the
hasn't
film
showed me
before I,
enough.
put him up on a pedestal. Oh,
Hey, Charlie has very
yeah.
high standards here.
Oh, yeah, it's tremendous. Yeah.
Oh God,
Absolutely.
Charlie, what was the name of the kid that called all the deep passes in preseason that you're obsessed with?
in preseason last year?
No. This is like 5 years ago. Washington? That
all a blur. Corey Washington.
Corey Washington.
Yeah, Corey
Corey
Washington.
Washington. No, not Pepe Le Pew.
The French wide receiver went to the Falcons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
I don't
about 3
remember.
weeks.
Yeah.
No,
Hey,
it
I'll
was
tell you
Corey
what, though.
Washington.
Hey, Dre Miller got picked up by the Green Bay Packers.
I saw.
He's on
Congratulations.
the Packers squad.
Wide receiver
And
or
he
tight end?
also-
He's on the road to start.
What's he
No,
gonna play?
wide receiver.
Okay.
He's a
well,
wide receiver.
I understand, but he has
So that
experience
was
in both.
great.
That's why I'm asking. Okay.
No, they listed him as a wide receiver. They got him
well,
as a
they
wide
consulted
receiver.
with you, obviously. Yeah, Brian Gutekunst.
Yeah, of course they did.
Well, Brian Gutekunst, right, the GM of the Packers, he called you up, right? He wanted a good recommendation.
Love to see him try to pronounce
Jay.
that one.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I took the name. Yeah, we'd be here all day, him sounding out the consonants. Yeah,
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate
tremendous.
the call, bud.
Yeah. Sure, all of our listeners and viewers got a whole lot out
I'm
of
sure
that.
people were laughing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He struggled. He says they're going to keep 7 wide
And then he
receiver,
can't-
and he can't get. He can barely get through 3
He's
others.
like, you have to keep 7. You can't let these guys go.
But he can't name 6 other guys.
Who are the guys on the team again? Oh, God.
Material writes itself.
The Giants' official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV and the Giants mobile app. Let's go back to back in a belly to belly. Wilson and Roxbury's up next. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, my favorite two buddies together. When I saw you guys together, I had to call. I said I can't pass this up. So
Great.
And I'm gonna try not to ruin your Friday. Okay.
Okay, what do you got, Wilson?
You may not have to try,
Thanks
but yes,
for
go
calling.
ahead. Yeah.
No, but listen. All kidding aside, so Charlie was talking. Listen, is there a point of having Sterling Shepard and Cole Beasley on the roster? Is there a point? Because I don't want to see Sterling Shepard on the field anymore. Find him a job like an assistant coach or something. I don't want to have to cringe every time I see him on the field.
Why do you cringe every time you see him on the field?
Because I don't want to.
Because you're worried about him getting hurt?
I like Sterling. I don't want him to get hurt.
Okay. That's fair.
That's it. Just and Cole Beasley is 100 years old. I mean, he
looks pretty good for 100. Yeah.
Well, he retires. I mean, what is there a point of you know what kind of player Cole Beasley is, and you know what kind of player Sterling Shepard is. You're taking away from the young guys.
No, I think it's a good question, Wilson. Lance, do you think there's a good chance, average chance, or small chance, or no chance that both Sterling Shepard and Beasley make the 53?
No, they're not going to make the team. That's the point.
I think one of the two will make it, but I would say
agree.
there's a small chance that both.
And I think there's a better chance Shepard makes it than Beasley.
Of course, there's a better chance because they know him. But
well, I mean, listen, Dable knows Beasley very well too.
Dable and Shane both know Beasley.
Yeah, I
very
wouldn't
well.
use the know it factor
Now,
as the deciding.
I
one.
would say this, Wilson. More than that, remember, Beasley was a free agent almost all of last regular season.
Yeah,
They could have signed him at nearly any point, and they chose not to. So that maybe sends a little bit of a message in terms of what they think of him, too. Because if they thought, all right, this guy's definitely going to help our team, and we know the injuries they had a wide receiver last year, why wouldn't they have brought him in last season, right? So that's why... Is there an outside chance both guys make it? Sure. I'm with Lance. I think more than likely one of the two makes it, and if I had to guess, I think it'd be Shepard. But again, this is just my opinion. I haven't talked to anyone.
and remember, once again, we're not wishing anything, but Shepard also has to prove he could get through training camp healthy. The decision may be made for the team, is what I'm saying, if he doesn't carry through in terms of durability.
And I'll say this too. I think Wilson Shepard is a little bit more versatile, right? He can play outside. Yeah. Cole Beasley's not an outside receiver at all, but Shepard can play outside if you need him to.
Yeah, meaning you could put both of them out on the field, which answers the first question, Wilson, that you were throwing out.
But I think Shepard's probably more valuable because he can play multiple spots as a receiver.
Without a doubt. Sure.
Right, but listen, I think Shep has given all he could. I think it's time for him just to can they give him like a job, like maybe assistant wide receiver.
I mean, they can add him to the staff if they want.
He wants to play.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
he wants to play.
He wants to play, but sometimes you don't get what you want, and sometimes the team has to make a decision for him.
Well, Wilson, I understand,
Sure.
but you got to give him a chance.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, if they cut ties with him and they go to him, Shep, we'd like to bring you back on the staff, and he says, no, I'd like to take my chances in the free agent market.
Which is, I bet, what would happen.
And see whether or not I can play for another team.
He's not getting another chance in any other team, Lance. Come on, you guys know that.
Shepard's a veteran wide receiver. If somebody wants a slot/outside guy and has an injury in training camp, there could very well be an opportunity for Shepard.
He was an effective player before he tore his ACL last year.
Yeah,
I mean, Wilson, I have not seen... Look, Shepard's had, 3 practices since he came back from injury, something like that, and today was an off day for him. So I need to see more Wilson. Watching him out there, you don't watch, at least in my opinion, you don't watch him and say, that guy's toast. And there's been veterans that have come here before, and you're like, okay, that guy doesn't have anything left in the tank, and I don't think he can do it. You watch Shepard, he still has some juice in those legs. Like, he's moving around pretty well.
John, can I ask you something?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if you guys can answer this, because obviously you guys work for the company, but do you think, is he taking away reps from the young guys, from the future? Is he taking away from that?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, I don't think Sterling Shepard's going to start ahead of Paris Campbell or whenever he gets healthy, Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't think. Let me put it this way, Wilson. If Shepard makes the team, do I think he's playing like 80% of the wide receiver snaps? No, I do not.
Okay, because I think your wide receiver group should be Slayton, Hodgins, should be. I love Colin Johnson. I think his size. You cannot teach that. I will give
Can't teach size.
maybe. I will give maybe.
Not the first
like,
time that was said on this program. Yeah.
What?
No, we're just commenting on what you're saying. Don't worry, it's okay. It goes with the flow of the conversation. Yeah.
Colin, I will obviously Slayton. Obviously, I don't know. What about maybe giving this guy a look? I think Crowder could be a much better fit for the Giants.
Isn't Crowder older than Shepard?
Crowder's a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but he's got something else that Cole Beasley doesn't give you. Cole Beasley will just run about 5 yards.
No, I don't care about Cole Beasley. Why?
you were talking about Shepard.
Why Crowder over Shepard?
Well, because he doesn't have nearly as an injury history that Shepard does.
Oh, Crowder was banged up last season.
But Shepard's been much more productive than Crowder has in more recent seasons. So I don't understand why you're so anti-Shep.
No, I'm not anti. I just don't want to. I guess the bottom line is I have this little soft spot in my heart for Shep, and I don't want to see him get hurt.
That's very good.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the Giants coaching staff. Wilson can't think through that lens and appreciate the call. I was going to say, I mean, who are you so worried about on the roster that Shepard's taking snaps away?
No,
I mean,
exactly.
If you watch practice on a consistent basis, they're mixing these guys in and out of the lineup. You see a lot of guys get targets and opportunities. Mm-hmm. I've been very high on Colin Johnson. John, every single time I go out there and watch practice, Colin's getting the ball and he's making a play. I'm not saying it's flashy. I'm not saying it's sexy. But what you want to see out of a player consistency-wise, to me, Colin Johnson gets all the check marks. Now, does that mean that he gets pushed to the head of the list? I don't know. But I'm not seeing somebody that's hurting his chances, is what I'm saying, based on what he's putting forth on a daily basis. And I always said he's like the forgotten stepchild because he got hurt last season. We went through a boatload of names, and you forget Colin Johnson's back, and he's still on the roster.
Yeah. Look, I think he's the bubble guy right now. Look, the guys we know, and this is going back to the beginning, I don't want to run through this again. We've done this a million times. We know Hyatt's on. We know Slayton's on. We know Hodgins is on. And we know Paris Campbell is on. Correct. Those are the four guys we know are on for sure. Then you get into the Shepard, Beasley, Colin Johnson, Crowder, Bryce Ford Wheaton, David Sills kind of category.
Yeah.
And by the way, and Khalil Pimpleton's in that mix too.
Sure.
And Jeff Smith was let go, by the way, so just FYI.
And Wan'Dale Robinson, if he's healthy, he's on the roster. But the fact that he's on PUP and could be carried over, we won't include him in this exercise.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Because if he's off PUP, then do you keep 7 because you don't want to rush him back? Like that's when.
But my feeling is, John, see, the way that I look at it is,
taking him off,
if you're taking him off PUP, he's right. You don't take him off of PUP because you know you have the insurance policy to put him on regular season PUP. Right. What is the purpose of taking a guy off of PUP and he's on the fence for week 1? If he's on the fence, keep him on PUP.
And PUP is 4 games now, correct?
I believe it was amended.
It used to be 6,
4.
but I'm pretty
correct.
sure it's
yes,
4
I
now.
think last season it started, but let's just look that up for confirmation.
In the meantime, 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Hey, Giant fans, the schedule is out. You've seen the opponents. Go check out single game tickets. They're on sale now. Don't miss the Giants at MetLife Stadium. Go to giants.com/tickets to secure your seat. Or while you're there, go check out a season ticket membership. You can take your fans to the next level. You stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available.
So IR and PUP are identical. 4 games.
That's what I
minimum.
think. Okay.
That's what you have to miss.
201-939. That used to be 6, by the way, before COVID, and then
they changed it to accommodate. Yep.
Which makes sense.
Now, one other thing, John, before you go on, I just want to mention Crowder. If you are going to have the Crowder-Shepard conversation, the one thing I will say is Crowder gives you special teams return.
That's true.
Shepard doesn't necessarily give you that.
Shep can catch punts.
He can. I just don't, and I don't think they're going to put him in that position.
No,
so
me neither.
Crowder, there's that dual threat to him if you are having the debate at the back end of the wide receiver.
Yeah,
class.
I kind of put Shepard, Beasley, Crowder in a group.
Well, in terms of similar size, stature, the ability to play in the slot, no, I'm completely with you. But then when we start separating them,
sure,
I would actually give Crowder the edge. Beasley has return experience. He hasn't done that, though, for several seasons.
Yeah.
Crowder has recent return work.
Back to the phones. Tim and Charleston's up next. Hey, Tim.
Hey, John, Lance, great to talk to you guys together. It's always a great show when you two guys are together.
Thank you. What's up?
Appreciate it.
Not always a great show, but I particularly enjoy it. So I've been thinking about something, and it comes down to position groups. And I've been saying to friends who are and even who aren't Giant fans that, in my humble opinion, I feel like this Giants team on paper and from early reports at least is the deepest, most talented and young team we've had in at least 10 years. And that's just, it's my feeling. And I know it's too early to say that.
I'd say 5 for sure. I would have to think back to the 13 and 14 teams, but you have a chance at that.
Okay. That's fair. So anyway, and I've been thinking about where am I worried? And I was worried a little I like Banks and having the two corners, and the way Trey Hawkins has stepped up, I feel like, and plus the other guys who are in the mix there, I feel like we have more depth there than I was expecting to have. And the one area that I'm thinking about, I'm sorry, you had something.
No. I'm agreeing. I think you have pretty good depth at corner. I think the slot spot is a spot that's still up for grabs a little bit, and there's some questions there. But I think outside, I think you have some bodies there. I agree.
But I think with the slot, with them experimenting with Adoree, and I think we got a lot of options there. At least there's depth. So the one area I was thinking about, which is an area I think we actually have a lot of depth, but my biggest area of concern is the offensive line, and only from this perspective. Assuming Bredesen wins the left guard job, we're still going to have Evan Neal in his second year at right tackle, and we got John Michael Schmitz in the middle. So 2 of the 5 guys are going to be new. Not new, but you know what I mean.
Young. They're going to be young, yeah.
Right, going to be young. And my concern is how long it sometimes takes for an offensive line to gel and start to really play well from the beginning of the season. So while I think that this is a solid unit that will get better and better as the season goes on, I think my biggest concern is that they have to play well in the beginning of the season so that we can get off to a good start and not be playing catch-up.
Well, Tim, the good news is that while Neal is young, he played next to Glowinski all year last year. So those guys should be okay together. The only really new guy in that mix is Schmitz. And you don't love the new guy being the center because he does a lot to kind of bind the line together. But the other 4 guys, I have to check how many games Bredesen and snaps he took.
Yeah, I remember he alternated. Because he got hurt at one stage last season. He missed some time.
He must have played at least a few hundred snaps at left guard.
Yeah, I would say they were probably next to each other for a good bulk.
So I think Andrew Thomas and him probably have a good feel for each other.
Yeah, and thank you guys. That was all I had. That was the thing that was
but I guess
in the front of my mind.
Well, but Tim, you brought up depth though. What does that have anything to do with depth though? That's what I'm confused.
Well,
you said concern about depth.
No, no. I said I mentioned that I think we're deeper, and the area of concern for me at the beginning of the season initially I thought was my concern was depth at cornerback, but I'm not so worried about that now. So I was thinking, what's my biggest area of concern? And it's just the gelling of the O-line. I think we got plenty of depth.
Gotcha. So that was a separate category. Okay, yeah. I thought he was talking about the depth on the offensive line. That's why I was confused.
I would say my biggest concern, aside from Evan Neal taking that step, and I think we've seen some progress this year. He's not Andrew Thomas yet by any means. And by the way, Andrew Thomas, again, undefeated in his reps. No one beats him ever because he's a monster. I don't know who the swing tackle is right now. And usually at this time of year, I think I would like to know who my swing tackle is. There's a few guys in the mix for that spot, and I don't think anyone's come out and grabbed it yet. So I think that's important because odds are Evan Neal and or Andrew Thomas are going to miss some games this year. It's just hard to keep both your tackles healthy all year. Few NFL teams have that luxury. You're going to need a backup offensive tackle.
Sure.
And I think right now, if I had to guess, it's Tyree Phillips.
Yeah, I would still stick with last year. Plus, he's gotten some work at guard too throughout camp.
But I don't know if that's locked in the stone, and he hasn't had a million snaps as a starting tackle in the league either. So that would be the one thing that I'm still kind of keeping my eye on.
Well, the other candidates, if you just look through the roster, Matt Parrott,
Corey Cunningham
is also dealing with some injuries, and Corey Cunningham, as you mentioned. Other than that, you don't have a lot of other options. So
Devery Hamilton's played there a little bit, but he was more of a guard last year than a tackle.
Correct, and he was a guy that they moved around. I remember when Bobby Johnson would speak to the media, he'd be like the plug-in guy, just Tell me where you want me to line up, coach, and I'll go. That's why I keep coming back to Tyree Phillips. I just think maybe the reason why they're giving him guard snaps is, once again, if you're going to keep 4 offensive linemen, everyone should be interchangeable at multiple spots.
Yeah, you want your backups to be multiple positional backups. And Marcus McKeithen, too, whenever he gets off, he's a guy that can play guard and tackle, too. So
yeah, and he's
we'll
on
see
PUP right
if
now.
he can get off a PUP, exactly. All right, let's go to Crush in Phoenix. He's up next. Hey, Crush.
Hey, how we doing?
What's up?
I'll make this short and sweet.
Great.
One, I love the mix and match of the hosts that we've had recently. Looking forward to the next season and, seeing everyone do a great job.
Thank you.
Can we have Fiegels come back? Just once.
I
and
know.
Then do a little quiz game show. I miss him.
No,
I miss the guy.
Crush, we love Fiegels, too. I also miss Fiegels. He's going to be in the mix in some way, shape, or form along the way.
Awesome. That's great to hear. All right, second question related to that, and I feel like there wasn't a lot promoted, advertised, Hall of Fame nominations. So Fiegels was on there, Otis Anderson was on there, Coughlin was on there. I think Coughlin was the only one that carried through.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do we drum up a little more support for Fiegels and for Otis Anderson? Because I think they're both really deserving league-wide in terms of memorability, like they're rememberable. Or notable, I guess, maybe is a better word. Maybe the stats aren't everything they're supposed to be, but I feel like those two guys are deserving, and maybe as fans, can we get them closer?
Yeah.
And that's all I got. I'll take it off the air.
No, I appreciate it, Crush. Thanks for the call and appreciate the kind words. I throw Banks in there, too. Look, Carl was first-team all-decade linebacker in the 80s. So the Hall of Fame voted him an first-team all-decade player in the 80s, yet he somehow can't get love to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the few guys that meets that criteria that's not in the Hall of Fame.
It has to be.
Because just about everybody else is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
that to me has always been confusing. And I know Carl didn't get a lot of the glamour stats because LT was getting the sacks and he was doing the dirty work, but he was a hell of a player. And, OJ has over 1,000 rushing yards, and he was one of the best. Before he came to the Giants, he was one of the best running backs in the league for the Cardinals. His role here wasn't quite as full because he split time with Joe Morris, then eventually with Rodney Hampton. He had some injuries. But, yeah, look, I think those guys and Jeff, with all his games played, his consistency as a punter.
He's number one on the list, yeah.
How can you drum up more support? I mean, I would just say push it on social media. I mean, I don't know what else I can really say except for that. The fans don't have any type of, it's not like an all-star.
No, they don't. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I really don't know what the last caller was hoping to accomplish because at the end of the day, the way that the Hall of Fame is set up, it's a select group of writers.
It's a committee.
And they only can speak on behalf of a player from the market they represent. That's the other thing that's very difficult for these guys to get pushed through. For example, I mean, if we use Jeff, Jeff played for a variety of different organizations.
4 or 5.
But
right?
There's a writer or representative from all the markets that he played that can't speak on Jeff's behalf. Can only have one individual speak on his behalf. You can't even have the head coach of an individual come in and address the committee. That coach can speak to the representative who makes the case for the player. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of restrictions in place that makes it difficult. I could say the same thing about Major League Baseball, too, and that has its own issues. We'll save that for another time. But with respect to football, I don't know what fans could do because it's still going to be in the hands of the committee and the individuals that speak on behalf of those players. Plus, remember, the other big challenge is all the guys that we've mentioned, decades removed from their playing days. And every year, John, you have new players that are eligible who are going to eat up a good portion of the spots, which means that, unfortunately, a lot of these guys, after so many years, you just hope that the Veterans Committee and the Senior Committee gets you to be able to push through. Because a guy like Tom Coughlin, for example, he gets consideration, that's the contributor category, right? Now,
then those are all non-players.
Correct, non-players. So when you're a player and you're now up against players that are only 5 years removed from retirement, you have that much more of a talent pool that you have to contend with. It's not easy.
Not easy. 201-939-4513. Matty and Manahawkin. What's up, Matty?
Hey, how you doing, John and Lance?
What's up, Marty?
Talked to you in a while.
Yeah.
Hey, I heard you were talking about the linemen, and I happened to see today in print that they had, I guess because of the injuries, but they had Matt Peart running with the first team. I was just wondering if he's shown anything in training camp this year.
He had a really nice rep today in one-on-ones against Tom Fox. He kind of stumped him, anchored down, and had a nice stop. Yeah, I mean, he's done some nice things. He was very excited. I talked to him this spring. It was on the Giants Huddle podcast. Go check it out. And he's very just happy he was healthy. You know, he's been fighting injuries for basically 2 years, and he finally felt 100%. So this is his chance. Like, if he doesn't make the team this year, he'll have to catch on somewhere else. That can be hard sometimes. He doesn't have much, playing time in the league for teams to have tape of him. So this is a really important offseason for him. And again, I think he's in the mix with Tyree Phillips trying to earn that swing tackle spot.
Remember, he missed the bulk of last season. He wasn't activated till November. And this is a critical year, John, from the standpoint of a third-round pick in 2020. So he's in the final year of his rookie deal, and he was not drafted by Joe Shane and his staff. So there's a lot of newness that have come about that is going to impact Matt Parrott. It goes back to swing tackle position. We brought up Tyree Phillips. Matt Parrott is another, and Corey Cunningham. So he's within those three. Can he separate himself from the rest of the pack? I think we'll know more in the preseason games as opposed to maybe a few reps here or there with the first team.
And we were talking about this off the air in the cafeteria the other day. If they handle this like they did last year and like they have in years past, they're going to have those 2 padded practices against the Lions next week. In years past, after those 2, which are usually pretty intense practices, nobody plays in that preseason.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're going to get...
that's their game.
Yeah, so guys like Matt Parrott, guys like Tyree Phillips, guys battling for these backup offensive line spots, they're going to have a huge, huge opportunity to try to earn their spot in that first preseason game. You're not going to see starters, but you're going to see those guys fighting for backup spots in those final, 8 to 10 spots that are left on the 53.
Well, and here's the other thing to take into consideration, the fact that most of these guys are not going to be playing in the preseason. If Evan Neal can't take part in those Lions practices, John, that actually opens the door for a guy like Matt Parrott, because maybe they would slide him in at right tackle with the first team, and forget how you fare in a Giants practice. He'll be going up against some of the Lions pass rushers. So that could be, not that you ever want to see anybody get hurt, but if Evan Neal can't take part because of the concussion, it may be a blessing in disguise for Matt Parrott to actually show what he's made of here.
Is he strictly a tackle, though?
Yes.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, because of his length, I think it'd be very hard to put him in at guard.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for the info.
Thanks, Marty.
Yep, you got it.
Let's wrap it up with Scott in New Mexico. Scotty Doo.
Hi, guys. How are you doing today?
Good.
You're right.
2 points I wanted to make. The Giants were last in pass defense against the run. And
Wait. They were last on pass defense against the run? What the hell does that mean?
Is that a new category? Wow. Pass defense and stopping the run. Woo. Yeah.
Stopping the run, yes.
Yeah,
stopping
I
the run.
wonder
Okay.
if you have this statistic when Blake Martinez was on the team, because I'm sort of equating Bobby Okereke to him. And I was wondering where the Giants ranked when Blake Martinez had, I think, 105 tackles or whatever, if you had that statistic, and where the Giants ranked defensively when he was on the team.
Well, you're going back
year?
to the previous year, but remember, Blake got hurt in the Atlanta
I'm talking
Falcons
about
game.
So you'd have to go back
So-
to 20, right?
20,
COVID
yeah,
year.
2020.
The COVID year, right?
Yeah, because you don't have much of a sample size in 2021.
I could look that up.
I could look up. I have my charts from each season. Let me see if I
Okay.
can bring that up. Sounds like you were very emotional when you
Yeah,
were
I know.
talking about Blake Martinez. It was like your throat got the better of you there. You sure there's nothing that we need to know about Blake Martinez? You own multiple jerseys.
I was curious because,
Yeah.
again, I was equating Bobby Okereke to a Blake Martinez who makes a lot of solo tackles. And because the Giants were last in run defense,
They
did
were
that
ranked
come into play now?
13th in rushing yards allowed per play, 19th in rushing yards allowed per game. So they were kind of right in the middle of the league.
Okay.
I have them. Did you look that up for 2020?
Yeah.
You said? For some reason, I have them tied for 10th against the run in terms of rushing yards per game. Was that one of the categories that you read? That's what I
have
had.
them as 19th. 110 rushing yards allowed per game.
So they were much better, obviously, with a good, strong linebacker.
Oh, I'm looking at their offense. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was going to say.
I was on the
Yeah.
Giants' offense. My bad.
Yeah, I have them tied for 10th
Yes, my
against
bad.
the run in 2020,
10th, yes.
111 yards per game.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
10th on defense, 8th yards per play. Correct.
Right. So,
Yep.
so I feel that the addition of Bobby Okereke is going to really make a difference in that run defense. My second question, and I know you guys are short on time, but I was looking at Darren Waller's record, and the puzzling part to me is, as good as he is, when he had his best years in Las Vegas, he didn't have a lot of touchdowns. We're talking about in his career, he's only had 19, which is really puzzling to me because I think one year he had like 107 receptions and like 15 or 20 plays over 20 yards, two I think over 40 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns. So I'm trying to figure out, at least in my own mind, maybe you can address it, why the production of touchdowns is so small with the kind of receiver. Because I sort of equate him to, he's not the same player, but sort of like a Megatron, a Calvin Johnson type player, where Calvin Johnson was pretty much unstoppable, and so was Darren Waller. But his production in touchdowns was over his career was very, very small. And I was wondering what you might equate that to. Was it the Las Vegas Raiders, the way they were playing him? Because I would think he'd be a humongous weapon in the red zone for the Giants, and I was just curious what your feelings are for the lack of production in actually scoring touchdowns. And I'll leave it at that and I'll take it off the air.
Thank you, Scott. I don't know. The Raiders were pretty bad those 2 years, if I remember right. That might have something to do with it. They just weren't down there very much. I think they had pretty bad records those 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, when he had all those yards. And again, not Darren Waller's fault. I mean, you don't assign records to tight ends. Please, let's not start doing that. But yeah, I don't have a great answer for that, Lance. I would have to go back and watch those Raider games, and I have no intention of doing that. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I would bring up number one. I mean, he was hurt last season, but they had a very good run game with Josh Jacobs. So when they got in the red zone, my argument would be they handed the ball off to Josh Jacobs to try to finish those drives. So therefore, maybe you're not getting as many targets. I also would point to, I think what happened more often than not is Waller would get a lot of those big explosive plays. Middle of the field, he put the Raiders in the red zone, and then now you're getting double teamed in the red zone. It's a tighter space, so you're opening up opportunities for your other teammates. Because I'm bringing up the touchdown numbers.
They were 7-9 and 8-8 in those years, by the way.
You're talking about what, 2019 and 20?
Yeah.
Those are the two seasons that we're looking at. So I have the breakdown of 2019 up, for example, and in that season, Derek Carr threw 21 touchdown passes, and he pretty much spread the wealth that season.
And by the way, he had 9 touchdown receptions his second big year. The year he had
2020?
Yeah, in 2020, when he almost had 1,200 yards receiving, he had 9 touchdowns.
Well, because I think
9. I mean, that's a lot.
That is a lot. I think what Scott was referring to was the total over the course of his career, but you have to understand he had a number of seasons where he was hurt.
A lot.
So that's why you may only see one season in particular that jumps off the page. But what's interesting, John...
this wouldn't bother me. I can tell you the Giants are throwing it to him. In the red zone, they're throwing it to him all the time. So don't worry about that.
Yeah, but I think it still goes back to the opportunities he could present for others if he does get a lot of attention. Because case in point, if you go back to 2019, which was not the year he had 9, that season Waller finished with just 3. What's noticeable to me in terms of the breakdown is Foster Moreau, their other tight end, had 5.
He had 5, wow.
And that goes back to double tight end formations. They're all going to Waller's way. Moreau, one-on-one, he's open. Carr, like a smart quarterback would, you're going to throw it to the guy that has a favorable matchup.
No question about it. Lance, good stuff.
Absolutely. Got it.
We'll be leaving for Detroit on Monday, so make sure you tune in to Big Blue Kickoff Live, and Lance will have you covered here the rest of the week. We'll be live on video all week. Then Paul and I will be live audio from the hotel in Detroit sometime on Thursday. Then Lance will be joined by, I think we're going to try to get Lance and Paul on Friday before Paul goes to the stadium. So that probably... Maybe Lance will be video, and then we'll have a little, like, Paul half screen with, like, a big Datino face up there or something like that. We'll have to work that out next week. It'll be great programming. So make sure you go check that out on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We have one more padded practice tomorrow, day off on Sunday, a unpadded practice on Monday, then team flies to Detroit late Monday afternoon for a couple of padded practices, game next Friday. We'll actually have a game to talk about, which should be fun. For Lance Medow, I'm John Schmeelk. Thanks for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We'll see you next time.